So today we'll be doing a full New York Giants season preview for 2020. We'll have like every player on the roster, not every, most players on the roster. I'll give you my honest predictions about them and some stats as well for offensive players at least. Record prediction, what I expect from the coaches. It's pretty much it. I think mostly everything. But I wanted to go over my what I'm planning to do for football season this year, schedule-wise. So basically, the night of the game for the Giants, there's going to be a post-game reaction. That doesn't change. On Monday or Tuesday, I think it might come out on Tuesday, we're going to do like the all-22 film breakdown type stuff and just go over the observations that I had watching that. I might have a weekly spot with the Entertainer, another really great Giants YouTuber. So I'm not sure about that. We talked about it a couple months ago. I just asked him about it, so we'll see if I get an answer. But we might be doing that weekly. Not really positive, but I'll let you guys know. And then Wednesdays, I'm doing an against the spread pick'em show for every game of the NFL season with my friend Andrew. He was in my fantasy football bowl prediction video, so we'll be doing that. I probably have that video coming out tomorrow, honestly, because I'll be away from the 8th to the 12th, so no videos during that time, but we'll probably release that video tomorrow. And on Thursday and Friday, one of those days, I'll be doing a Giants game preview. So I'm not sure exactly which day it will be. During the season, I'm going to start working full time, so I'm going to still try and find time to make these videos. I'm probably in over my head with this stuff, and I'll have a crazy schedule, but I do enjoy it, so hopefully we'll find time to do it. Hopefully you guys tune in for all that stuff, but that's pretty much it. I don't think I forgot anything, but I just wanted to let you guys know. But with that being said, let's get into the Giants 2020 season preview. We will start with the very important quarterback position. We have Daniel Jones. So, of course, Daniel Jones' backup's Colt McCoy. If things are going well for the Giants, he won't play this year. That's kind of how I hope it goes. I can't really project Colt McCoy. He's fine. He's an average backup, so that's what I have to say about him. For Daniel Jones, I expect a stat line of around 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, and around 12 interceptions. Now, the big thing is the fumbles. I think it was like 16 or 18 last year. So, as I've said, I think he can cut that number in half. Hopefully, I think during the scrimmage he had a fumble, which you hate to see. David Cutcliffe, his college coach, said he couldn't really fix that fumbling problem with him. I think Jason Garrett's offense is going to be good for Jones's fumbles because I think what they're going to try and do is just do really quick passing routes. Like I think they're going to do like 2-step drops, 2 or 3-step drops. First guy you see open, you hit him. You know, I don't really think like it's going to be too much standing in the pocket. Jones had a lot of time standing in the pocket last year. He definitely waited a long time, which I am a fan of, but sometimes it's a bit too long and it ends up resulting in a fumble. So I think this offense will be good for him and his fumbling issues. I'm sure he worked on that a lot in the offseason. So as long as he can, fix that, he'll be fine. Now he will have mistakes. We know that, and he has instances of not having the best deep accuracy. I mean, his arm talent isn't the best compared to some other people, but his deep accuracy is an issue, and there's a lot of underthrown balls. So watch out for that, obviously. But outside of those things, outside of the fumbling and the underthrows, I'm not really too worried about Daniel Jones. Honestly, he'll be fine outside of those things. Of course, those are big things, but if he can fix those, then I think he'll be honestly a really good quarterback. So we'll see. This offense will limit him, as I said, mostly the short, quick hitting passes to basically play to his strengths. He's a really great intermediate, accurate passer. You don't want him fumbling the ball and holding on to it too long, so I think that'll be the outcome for their offense in the passing game. And I think he'll prove to be an effective and above-average quarterback in the NFL. I know some people have MVP expectations for the guy. Look, the stat line I have of 3,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks, that's not MVP numbers, but you're going to prove to be an above-average or league-average quarterback, which is fine in my mind. Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback that I've always said if you put the right team around him, you'll be able to win games. Now, do the Giants have that team yet? No, but I think in the future they will have a chance to put the right team around him and ultimately build a winner around him. So I'm excited about that. I just don't expect MVP numbers from the guy. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'm just being honest this video, as I said. For Saquon Barkley, I expect a rushing stat line of 310 carries, which is a lot, 1,600 yards, rushing yards, and 12 touchdowns, and then a receiving line of 50 receptions and 350 yards. So this would be an awesome season for Saquon, obviously. That's basically averaging 100 rushing yards per game. I think they're going to try and give him as many carries as he can handle, around 20 per game. That would be great. As I said, he'll be leaned on, and I think as long as he's healthy, he'll be one of the front runners for offensive MVP this year. I don't know if he'll put up a Christian Christian McCaffrey type of year. I doubt it because I don't think Daniel Jones throws to the running back nearly as much as they did in the Panthers system. So maybe Jones does check it down to Barkley more, but we didn't see a lot of it last year at least. Now, for Dion Lewis, I don't expect him to be on the field too much, but I do have him finishing with around 25 to 30 receptions and about 2 to 3 rushing attempts per game. I think he'll be fine. As I've said with Colt McCoy, if the Giants have to lean on Dion Lewis to be their starter at some point, the team's probably not in a good place, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Nothing against Dion Lewis, but he's not Saquon Barkley talent-wise. So he might get some third down and long carries to kind of bolster his yards per attempt, and I think he'll finish somewhere around 4 yards per carry, which would be nice. So I think Dion Lewis, the run game will be fine. I think Daniel Jones will be fine. I'm feeling pretty good about those guys. Obviously, I'm not 100% sold on Daniel Jones, but it's looking like he's moving in the right direction, so I'm excited to see what he does this year. For the wide receiver and tight end positions, we will start with the tight ends here. So Evan Engram, is this the year he finally stays healthy? I think if he does stay healthy, he puts up monster numbers, but I personally don't think he'll play a full season. I will have him down for 12 games, put up around 650 yards and 6 touchdowns. That will be a fine season. Obviously, I hope he plays all 16. I just can't count on that based on his history, unfortunately, but I really hope he does find a way to play the whole season. For Caden Smith, he might play a really big role if Engram is out. He should put up around 250 to 300 receiving yards, assuming Engram is relatively healthy throughout the season. And Jason Garrett will probably use more 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field, more than Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur, obviously, so we'll see if that happens. Levine Toilolo can serve as more of a 6th offensive lineman, especially during the goal line situations. I think he can be in the goal line package for just blocking. I think we might see him as a fullback in some cases, maybe a jump ball opportunity here and there. So I do think he'll be a pretty useful player for them, down in the red zone, but especially on the goal line. But in general, I don't really expect Toilolo to be that great of a player. If Smith and Engram are gone, then maybe he does something, but I'm just not expecting too much out of him except for the goal line situations. For Sterling Shepard, I do have concerns about his availability, just like Evan Engram, but I don't see his reception total being super high, but he'll have a couple of big games this year. That's usually what Sterling Shepard does. He won't be targeting a crazy amount this year. I still think Golden Tate and a healthy Engram lead this team in targets, but if Sterling Shepard finds a way to have a few big games here and there, that's really all we need. So I expect somewhere from 700 to 800 receiving yards for the guy. I don't expect him to be the greatest receiver ever. I'd be very happy if he reached 1,000 yards. I just don't see it happening. I don't see the targets being there for him, and obviously he has to stay on the field. For the remaining wide receivers, we start with Golden Tate. As I said, I expect him to lead this team in targets. I think he'll have 80-plus receptions this year. Randall Cobb had a nice year with Jason Garrett's offense last year. I know it was Kellen Moore, but still it's some Jason Garrett as well. And even back to Cole Beasley, he was good in the slot for them. So I think Golden Tate, based on his talent, he's better than Randall Cobb. He's better than Cole Beasley. I think he'll get somewhere around 80 receptions if he's healthy. I believe he could lead this team in receiving yards as well, and I think he'll be big for them on moving the chains on 3rd and short, 3rd and medium type situations. Darius Slayton, the breakout guy from last year. So if the rest of the receivers stay healthy, I think his target share might not be where it was last year. Towards the end of the year when Slayton had some of his big games, there was, games where Sterling Shepard was out and Evan Engram was out. So I think with those guys back and hoping they're healthy, he might take a hit in his targets, but still Slayton will have some pretty big games just like Sterling Shepard this year. I think he'll get around 60 catches, 800 to 900 yards, maybe 6 to 8 touchdowns or something like that, but he'll be their big play threat for sure. I know Corey Coleman has a lot of speed as well. We'll get into him. So Coleman is a really good athlete, former first-round pick, as we know. He can make the big plays, and as a wide receiver forward, it's hard to project him for a big season, but I think around 300 to 400 yards and maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns is possible for him. The Giants also had C.J. Board added. I made this before the cuts, honestly, but they had C.J. Board. He's had 2 NFL receptions in his career for the Jaguars. He's 26 years old, 6'1", 180. Not sure what to expect from the guy, honestly, but if he makes some sort of impact, then that's definitely a win for the Giants, so hopefully he finds a way to make some type of positive impact this year. For the Giants' offensive line expectations, we start with Andrew Thomas, their new left tackle, so I think he may have his ups and downs early on. They play a lot of tough pass rushers the first few weeks of the season, the first month or so. But I think by the end of the year, we'll realize this guy is a franchise left tackle. He has too many tools to just be a flop of a pick. He's not Eric Flowers. He's nowhere near that bad. I think this guy is going to prove to be legit one day, and I think we'll see it by the end of the year. For Will Hernandez, he's a guy who definitely needs a big year. He's in year 3. He kind of, I don't want to say took a step back last year, but he didn't really improve the way we wanted him to. So I think he needs some improvements this year. He has the upside to be a top 10 guard in the league, but I think at worst he will be a league average guard. So I don't think Will Hernandez will ever be like a flop of a pick. We know he's good enough to be league average, but I do think he has the ability to be better than that. So hopefully he does it this year. For Nick Gates, who I expect to be their center. So Gates could be a center for this team for the first time in his career. Their offensive line coach, Mark Colombo, has been giving him some really good reviews in practice. We will see what happens. He's looked pretty good, I think, so far from what we've seen. He had a couple of high snaps to Saquon Barkley from the Wildcat formation, but outside of that, I have not seen anything too bad about Nick Gates, so hopefully he's a good center for us this year. Kevin Zeitler, not much to say. I mean, this might be his last year here based on his contract and it being a pretty big hit next year, but he should be continue to be steady for this team and be a really solid right guard for this team and hopefully one of the better ones in the league. Then for Cam Fleming, I don't have like the highest expectations for the guy, and I think he'll end up being what Mike Remmers was for the Giants last year. Not a guy who's going to be great, but not going to kill you either. I think Remmers had like one bad game against the Cardinals last year, but outside of that, he wasn't too terrible. So I think if Fleming does, kind of slip up at some points, they have Matt Parrott right over his shoulder, so he has to play well this year. Joe Judge is not going to put up with nonsense. He won't put up with Cam Fleming allowing 2-3 sacks a week. If he's not playing well, it's on to the next guy, so he has to play well this year. I think he'll be in there for at least the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, but if he's not playing well, I think Matt Parrott might be inserted at some point. For the other offensive linemen, of course, they have Matt Parrott, who I just, touched on before, but I think he's received some really good reviews. He's looked dominant in some of the practice videos they've released, so he might not be ready to start in September, but as I said, if Cam Fleming is letting up and not playing well by the midseason, then I think we might see Matt Parrott in there at right tackle. I do expect him at some point to play this year, though. I don't see the Giants as a playoff team, as you guys know, so I think sometime in December at worst, we will see Matt Parrott playing at some point. For Shane Lemieux, he might not play this year, assuming that Hernandez, Gates, Zeitler all stay healthy, but I think he's a really good depth option, and as I mentioned before, based on Kevin Zeitler's cap situation next year, I'm pretty sure the Giants can save around like maybe $10, $9, $11 million if they cut Zeitler, so that's kind of going to be up in the air. We'll see if that happens, but if he is cut, I think Shane Lemieux has a chance to be the right guard of the Giants next year, so we'll see if that happens. I do hope they kind of bring back Zeitler based on how he's played, but I guess we'll see how that goes next year. But they also had Chad Slade. They have Spencer Pulley. I'm not really a big Pulley guy, but they brought him back. I think Slade was actually just cut. I'm pretty sure I just saw to make room for some of the new guys that they claimed off waivers. So that sucks for him, but I think they will have Spencer Pulley this year. He can play on the interior. He's fine. I'm not going to say anything great about him, but he's fine, I guess. But for the younger guys here, I'm excited about Parrott. I'm excited about Lemieux, but I think we might not see Lemieux till next year, assuming that the guys in front of him stay healthy. Now on to defense. So defensive line. Dexter Lawrence, he looks like he is slimmed down based on some of the videos we've seen in practice so far and even the scrimmages. Hopefully he turns into an elite run stopper. I'm talking like top 5, top 3 in the league type run stopper. And maybe can get some sort of pass rush. He was all right last year with it. I think he had like 2.5 sacks or something. But I think maybe he can get the 4 sacks this year. That would be awesome. I'm not really expecting him to ever be an elite pass rusher, but if he ever reaches that, that would be great. Obviously, I wasn't the biggest fan of the pick based on positional value. I don't really expect him to be a guy that gets to the quarterback. But as I did acknowledge back at the draft, he will be a good player here for a long time, and I expect Lawrence to be one of the centerpieces of the Giants defense for a long time. Leonard Williams, he's playing for a big contract, obviously. He'll be motivated, so I think he's making $16 million on the franchise tag this year. He needs to improve on the pass rush, obviously. I think it could happen. I think he showed it in college. He had a couple of decent seasons with the sack numbers, but he needs to be better than the .5 or whatever he had last year. I expect him to get 3 or 4 sacks this year. He'll always be solid against the run, so I expect him to be a good player for this Giants defense as well. And then Dalvin Tomlinson, he's also in a contract year. Last year on that rookie deal, should continue to be a stud nose tackle for this team, so I'm not expecting him to get to the quarterback that much. That is, the main issue for this defensive line here. I think there's going to be 3-4 and 4-3 looks, so we'll see what the Giants do mainly. It's probably going to be 3-4 mainly, but I think Tomlinson as a nose tackle is a really good piece for the Giants. I hope they find a way to get him on a pretty decent contract after this year, but I expect him to have a good year once again. For the backup defensive lineman, we start with B.J. Hill. He made the team as most of us thought, so he will be the 4th guy in the rotation. I still think he's a pretty good player when he's in there. The problem is he is the 4th guy, so he needs someone to either not be effective or get injured. So if Dexter Lawrence or Leonard Williams or Dalvin Tomlinson get hurt, then you throw B.J. Hill in there and I think he'll be fine, but it really depends. Maybe he gets in there on 4-3 looks, but even then I think Marcus Golden's a defensive end. Maybe you put O'Shane at defensive end, so even then he might not play. That might be worse for him, honestly. So B.J. Hill, it really depends on the guys in front of him, but I think when he plays, he'll be solid. Then we have Austin Johnson, the former second rounder in 2016. He made the team, can offer some upside. I think he's probably the 4th or 5th guy in the rotation. So he hasn't played a full season, but when he started 9 games back in 2018, he was pretty good at nose tackle for them. So I guess if Dalvin Tomlinson went down, he could be the next guy in line for them. Daylon Mack didn't make the team, so forget about that one, but I did like him as a player. Hopefully he finds another landing spot. RJ McIntosh, he made the team, so he made some decent plays for them in 2019 season, had a couple sacks, I remember, made some nice run stops, but he's probably going to be one of those guys towards the end of the bench. I guess that's a basketball term, but still, towards the end of the bench, probably won't play too much, but if he gets in there, he's a decent player. Hopefully for his sake, he's able to make some nice plays for the Giants once again. For the inside linebackers, we start with Blake Martinez, one of the bigger offseason acquisitions, so he should lead this team in tackles, should be a good candidate to lead the team in defensive snaps as well. He had some sort of lower body injury going on. Of course, Joe Judge wouldn't tell us exactly what was going on, but he should be all right. I don't know if he was in the scrimmage. I forget, honestly. He might have been doing stuff off of the side in practice as well, but I think he'll be all right for week 1. But we'll see how he does against the pass. That is the concern about him, obviously, but we know he's a good tackler. He'll be able to put up some good stats for this team, but he'll be better than Alec Ogletree. That's really the thing that matters. Ryan Conley, forget about that one, obviously. Now he's on the Vikings, I just saw, so good for him. He got on to another team. It's kind of funny. I think Devontae Downs used to be a Viking, and now Conley is a Viking, so it's kind of like they traded for those guys. But anyway, David Mayo, he might miss the first couple weeks or so, but he is a nice depth piece. He does play the run pretty well, I guess, for the most part. I think he'll be a pretty good special teams player if he comes back, but it really depends how the guys, Devontae Downs and Tate Crowder do while he's absent. If they prove they can do really well, then David Mayo might be the last linebacker in the rotation, so we'll have to see how the other guys do first. For the other inside linebackers, so of course Tate Crowder, my guy, is here. Those that follow me on Twitter know I really like this guy's ability. I think he has a lot of upside, and I think has a chance to earn some actual defensive snaps this year because now Conley's gone. If Devontae Downs doesn't live up to the coaching staff's expectations, then Tate Crowder might be the next guy. Obviously, David Mayo could be, but I'd rather go with the upside of a Tate Crowder, especially for a team that I think is still rebuilding. So I would love to see Tate Crowder get some actual snaps at some point, and I think can be an actual pretty good starter for this team if he is given the opportunity. For Devontae Downs, a lot of the beat writers and whatnot, they gave some really great reviews on him. They considered him a sleeper pick to get snaps on this defense, and now we know that he is no longer a sleeper pick because Ryan Conley is out. So now he is the guy. He should start week 1, I believe, especially if Mayo is out. So, I think the Giants like his athleticism. That's what I've heard, at least. So, I guess compared to Ryan Conley, he looked better, probably healthier. So we'll see what he can do as a starting inside linebacker. It honestly could be a last year situation when Tate Davis started the first couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, Ryan Conley came in, and then I think it could be the same thing this year where Devontae Downs might start the first couple weeks, and then all of a sudden you see Tate Crowder in there, which I hope is the case. And lastly, for TJ Brunson. So Brunson, as I said, classic 1980s type of linebacker. linebacker, stops the run pretty well, kind of like David Mayo, could make some special teams tackles, but that's about it. I don't expect too much greatness out of TJ Brunson. I think him and Mayo are pretty similar players, but hopefully he does prove me wrong somehow. For the outside linebackers, we start with Oshane Ximines, one of the guys I'm most excited for this year, so I think he can take that next step, be an 8 to 12 sack guy. I might be a year too early on him, but I'm really excited for him. I do hope he gets starter snaps. Last year he played 45% of the snaps for them, so if he's the starter this year, I expect better numbers. He had 4.5 sacks last year, had a good amount of pressures and quarterback knockdowns. I think if he is a starter, he'll put up some good numbers for them. Marcus Golden, the Giants got great value for him based on the contract, a 1-year, like $5 million deal. That was great job by the front office there. And I think last year he had some cleanup sacks for sure, made his numbers look better. I still expect him, if he's healthy, to put up 7-8 sacks. I think he'll have a pretty solid year. He'll be, a really good sidekick for Oshane Ximines, assuming he breaks out this year. So I think that's a pretty good combination right there. Then you have Kyler Fackrell. I was a big fan of his signing for sure. I think he could be the number 3, number 4 outside linebacker. Him and Lorenzo Carter is kind of a toss-up to me, but he's a big guy, 6'5", 245. He's good at pressuring the quarterback. He might miss tackles here and there. That's kind of like why he was not signed for a ton of money, but he might miss some tackles. He's not the greatest against the run, but I guess he's a pretty good option, I think, for a number 3 outside linebacker. I think one of the better options in the league, honestly, so I'm happy with that signing. I think they have a pretty good group here, honestly. It's a pretty talented group. I don't think anyone on this team is going to reach like a crazy sack total of like 15, but I think Ximines will have the most on this team. Golden obviously will get his, so I think it's a pretty good group here for the starting outside linebackers. For the other outside linebackers, Lorenzo Carter, who I talked about before, he's been dominant in the practices. He was like great in the scrimmage, had like 4 sacks or 3.5 sacks in like one game in the scrimmage. That was awesome. I think it will be hard for him to take over the starting job at some point, assuming that Ximines and Marcus Golden play well. Now, Marcus Golden had, he's had his injuries in the past. It's not like he's the most durable guy out there. So if Golden goes down, it could be a toss-up between Fackrell and Lorenzo Carter. So I think Carter, if there's an injury in front of him, could play some snaps this year. He'll have the ability to prove if he is the guy or if he's just a practice player. So, I'm not really sure what to expect. I think Carter is a decent player, a good depth option for sure, but I don't think he's like a legitimate, 10-sack guy, but I hope he does prove me wrong. Cam Brown. So Cam Brown, super good athlete, 6'5", 235 frame. They brought him in this year, obviously. I think he's more of a project, but if he does play this year, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he's going to be a guy like Shane Lemieux, who probably doesn't play much this year, but I think for 2021, assuming he grows into his body and works on some of his skills, he has a chance to be a starter next year if things go right for him. And then there's Carter Coughlin. So Coughlin is liked by a lot of Giants fans. PFF likes him as well. I know some of you hate PFF, and me and PFF kind of differ on this one. I don't really see the appeal with Carter, but I think as a special teams player, he can be a really good one for the Giants, so I'm excited about that. He will give you maximum effort. He is really tough to block, apparently, according to Joe Judge at practice, based on those reports. But I think a lot of his college stats and his highlights were kind of just like, he was like basically on a stunt. He was just wide open going to the quarterback. So I didn't see stuff where I was too impressed with, but I think he'll be a pretty good special teams player for the Giants at minimum. For cornerback, the Giants have James Bradbury, obviously another big offseason signing by them. So I like Bradbury in this defense. He's proved he's pretty good at man defense, played in a tough division with Evans, Thomas, and Julio Jones. Comes to an easier division, honestly, and I think he'll be able to hold his own. It's the other side I'm kind of worried about, but he'll be fine. I said in my bowl prediction video, I think he could be a Pro Bowler this year. He'll be in a spot where he can definitely make some plays on the ball and I think have a pretty good year. He does stay healthy for the most part, knock on wood, but I think he'll be fine for this team this year. I'm excited for him. Logan Ryan, I think, he can play all over in the secondary. As I said, I think mostly he'll be an outside cornerback, whether it's him or Julian Love. I think, obviously you can put Love at safety, you can put Ryan at safety, you can put Ryan at cornerback, you can put Love at cornerback, so we'll see what they do with that situation there. But he's a really good nose for the ball for sure. He knows how to create turnovers. He had 4 sacks last year, so Logan Ryan can do it all for sure. I'm excited for him. I think that was a good signing. And then we have Darnay Holmes, another guy I'm super excited about. So Holmes, as you know, is one of my favorite picks in the draft. I like what I saw from him at UCLA. I think is a perfect slot corner for the NFL, has great speed, really good hips, and I think will be one of the better slot corners in football one day. He's been great in practice, apparently, great reviews so far, and I think he'll be one of the better Giants players at some point in the future. For the other cornerbacks, some guys are not on the team, obviously, but Corey Ballantyne, he made it. We know he's not a slot guy based on what we saw last year. I still have images in my head of Allen Robinson abusing him in the slot, but apparently he hasn't been that great in practice. He was, a pick last year in the draft. So, I like his athleticism. We'll have to see if he puts it all together, but I'm not expecting too much, obviously. He might get some playing time if guys in front of him get hurt. I think Brandon Williams was cut. Grant Haley was cut. Chris Williamson, I believe, didn't make the roster. He might be back on the practice squad. I don't really have the highest expectations for him. And Isaac Yiadom from the Denver Broncos, they got him for a 7th rounder. So apparently he wasn't the best scheme fit for the Broncos. I think Vance Joseph is their defensive coordinator, if I remember correctly, and he was playing a lot of, I don't know if it was zone or man, I forget what it was, but I think I guess it was too much zone, because I feel like the Giants, obviously they want to play a lot of man defense in their secondary, and I think they believe Yiadom can be good at that, so that's probably why they brought him in. Last time the Giants sent a 7th rounder to the Broncos, they got Riley Dixon, so hopefully this is somewhat of a similar return here for the Giants. I think Yiadom has the potential to be a hidden gem for this team, but we'll see if he fits into the scheme or not. But I think it's a 7th round pick, so why not do it? For the Giants safeties, of course, they have Jabril Peppers, and he did get hurt last year. He needs to stay healthy, but I think he can be a guy that can either just continue to be decent or can turn into a top 10 safety in the league. Obviously, he has the upside and potential for it. He needs to put it all together, and as I said, needs to stay healthy. So we'll see what he can do there. Julian Love, he's a guy that can play all over. It seems like he was good at free safety last year once Peppers got hurt. There might be moments where he gives up some big plays and stuff like that, but I think for the most part, we'll see Julian Love do a pretty nice job in filling in for Xavier McKinney. I won't complain about Love too much, honestly, because it's not really his natural position. Xavier McKinney, I think maybe returns in November. As I've said, I don't want to rush him back. I hope he takes his time and fully heals. Don't further injure yourself, but his future outlook, assuming his health is good, is still great. I think, from 2021 and beyond, will hopefully be a really good safety for this team. He was one of my, favorite guys for this defense this year. Unfortunately, he's gone. If he doesn't come back, then so be it. But if he does come back, he should contribute right away and be a good player for them. I think another safety that made the team is Sean Chandler, a guy I liked. He was on the team last year. He's a decent player. I think he was on there in 2018 as well, I'm pretty sure. So he was, pretty good when he was in there, made some plays for the Giants. I think I made a highlight tape for him at one point. So he's a decent player. I don't want him starting, obviously, but if he gets in there sometimes, it won't be the worst thing in the world. But I like Sean. Seems like a good guy. So happy he made it. But the Giants safeties are a bit thin there. I'm not going to lie. I know that Logan Ryan can obviously play there, but Jabril Peppers has to be a lead dog and a really good defender for them this year. For the special teams players, Riley Dixon obviously was great for them the last couple years. I think he'll keep it up. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. For Graham Gano, the Giants have a new kicker. I think, basically what I wrote down is do what you did against the Giants, but do it against other teams this time. Obviously, Graham Gano, the past 5 years or so, has had a couple of game-winning kicks against us. He's done really well. I like Gano. I like him better than Chandler Catanzaro. Rosas did struggle a lot last year, so he doesn't have the highest expectations, but I think Gano has looked really good in the scrimmages so far. I have not seen him miss a kick. Hopefully he keeps that up, and I think he'll have a good year for the Giants this year. So now for the coordinators, they get part of the video as well. Obviously, the Giants had a rough defensive coordinator in James Bettcher the past couple of years. Now, he didn't have the best talent, I get it, but still, it just was not good. Pat Shurmur was their OC basically the last couple of years. Their offense was all right. It wasn't the worst, I guess, but it was all right. For Jason Garrett, I do expect more 12 personnel. I said that before for Levine Toilolo or Caden Smith's section. He will do that a lot more than McAdoo, who never did it, and then Shurmur, who only did it sometimes. They'll rely on a lot of short passes, in my opinion. They'll run the ball a lot and just try to win the time of possession battle, which is fine. The Giants holding the ball and keeping their defense off the field, definitely a good thing. So I hope they do that. And he likes to depend on the star running backs. Of course, he did that with Zeke, of course, and even the time when he had Darren McFadden, he had DeMarco Murray. I don't know if he was there for Felix Jones. I don't know how far back I can go here, but they seem to give one running back all the work, and I think Saquon Barkley will be no different here. So they'll just give him as many carries as he can handle. But I do think for Daniel Jones, at least, I think this Jason Garrett hire is a pretty good one. I've noticed they kind of switched up Daniel Jones' footwork a bit. Last year, his feet were just parallel, basically, at when he was not under center in like a shotgun formation. Now his left foot's in front of his right foot, probably just to help his drop back. That could be a good thing, obviously. It could limit the fumbles. I think the quick passes will definitely help the offensive line look better than it is, and I like that a lot. So hopefully the Giants can find a way to be effective on offense and keep that up. For Patrick Graham, there's been some good reviews about him so far, so I think he'll dial up a lot of interesting blitz packages, and he'll be the type of coordinator that's going to try and confuse an opposing quarterback. So he's going to throw out some looks that might be like, we'll put one safety up high and then turn it into a cover two and just somehow confuse quarterbacks. I think he'll do stuff like that. He's going to bring a lot of pressure based on what we've seen in the scrimmages and some of the stuff we saw with the Dolphins last year. I know it's Brian Flores influence as well, but based on his history, I think Patrick Graham will try to generate a pass rush. He will leave the cornerbacks and safeties and whoever's covering on an island. The cornerbacks and safeties have to be good at covering, because if they're not, this defense will be terrible. But if they can do it, then I think they'll be fine. I think the Giants defense has potential to be pretty good. It just depends how the corners play, obviously. So if Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Darnay Holmes, if they can cover their guys, this defense can be really good. If not, then it'll probably be really bad. That's the way I have to put it. But basically, I think the both coordinators will do a good job. There's, as I said, the expectations based on what James Bettcher was, it was not good at all. So I think Patrick Graham will have a pretty clean slate here. The expectations won't be super high, but I think he'll do some good things. He might have instances where he's over aggressive, but I think in terms of communication as well, that's a big thing for the Giants defense. A lot of like pointing at each other. The Giants didn't know who they were guarding last year. Of course, the Zach Ertz touchdown to win the game on Monday night was a prime example of it. Last year in week one, it seemed like every other play a guy was running wide open. So I think the Giants defense communication-wise will be a lot better this year. That is a big thing. They're not the most talented defense in the world, but they seem better coached, and I think the scheme will be better than what it's been for James Bettcher the last couple of years. And finally, the record prediction. Now, I didn't really make a Joe Judge slide. I'm actually there's really nothing to say about Joe Judge. I think he'll be a beast. I'm really excited for him. It really just comes down to decision making, getting the most out of his players, and I think he'll be good at that stuff. So I'm really just not too concerned about it, honestly. So my record expectations for the Giants. My prediction, I've said this before, I think they're a 6-10 team based on the tough schedule and a very young roster. Now, their ceiling, I think the highest amount of wins they can get this year is probably 10-6 if everything goes right. We're talking Daniel Jones MVP level. We're talking Dexter Lawrence gets like 6 or 7 sacks. We're talking O'Shane Ximines breaks out. We're talking James Bradbury is the all-pro corner that I guess he would have to be in that case. We're talking a lot of good things happen there. Now, their floor, the lowest potential record I think they can get this year, is 4-12. Now, if that happens, we're talking Daniel Jones is a bust. We're talking a lot of young guys are hurt or not playing well. We're talking just the coaching staff has no idea what it's doing, and they're just way in over their head. And I don't think that'll happen. I'm leaning towards more the ceiling side. I think better things are happening. I think the floor is probably not going to happen, but have to include it. But I'm excited for the team, obviously. I think they're moving in the right direction. I think, we're finally off of that winning and trying to rebuild crap. I mean, that was just ridiculous. I mean, once Gettleman said that last year, I just wanted to, I don't even know. But it was not good to hear that, obviously. But I think this is now a full rebuild. They're doing it the right way. I love the offseason the Giants had. I mean, there was maybe a couple of things I didn't agree with. I can't even think about them now. But for the most part, I liked the Bradbury. This is the part it was. I wanted Corey Littleton over Blake Martinez. I'll admit that one. Okay, but outside of that, I mean, I was pretty satisfied with the Giants offseason. I liked their draft a lot. I think they did some really good things there. They built depth for the future. They had some really good players, obviously. They might have had a Mr. Irrelevant great pick in the 7th round. I'm happy about that one. So, Kyler Fackrell was a good move as well. Colt McCoy was a good backup quarterback to bring in. So there were some good moves in the offseason. I'm happy about it. So let me know in the comments your record prediction. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Tomorrow we're doing the week 1 picks against the spread. Hopefully you join us for that one, and I'll talk to you guys next time.